together a quick and easy little video on fixing the gauges on an OBS. Let's see what I'm talking about here. It's funny, it doesn't really look like it's jumping around right now. So I took the glass out, right? I mean, I took the plastic bezel out, I took everything out. But the fuel gauge, apparently you need to put it back exactly where it was. So I had to put it back in so that I could mark just about there. Apparently the oil gauge resets itself, although, oh yeah, that one's pretty stable actually. Temperature's down, voltage is high, over 14, but that's because I have it on a trickle charger right now. Here's a fun fact: if you try to drive your OBS truck around without the gauge in, without your bezel, gauge, whatever, the dash in, there's something that tickles the alternator and tells it to start charging. So I get in the truck, I go out to I get in the truck, I go out to Aldi's, I go to buy some stuff. Well, this one actually fights me. That one doesn't really bounce, but it's really just this one. You know, it's funny, it's not even moving now. But I'm gonna add some silicone oil. I watched it on another YouTube channel, so I figured I would make my own little video, just so there are more than one resources and maybe problems and solutions. Check engine lights on. So I drive to Aldi's without this in, thinking, no big deal, I don't really need to know how fast I'm going since I don't go fast in this anyway. And go get something, get back in, come back, no problem, right? I pull in front of my house and it starts shifting kind of funny. And then when I go to park, boom, the truck turns off. So I'm thinking, oh, what bad luck. That's crazy. How could the battery be dead at the same time? Yeah, until I just woke up. How could the battery be dead at the same time? And then my buddy, Ray, who knows a lot of stuff about stuff, he looked it up and he sent it to me. He's like, hey, without the bezel in, the alternator doesn't know to charge. So that was that. So here we are. All right, so here we are. Guess we shall learn together. Oh, let me put this piece of tape away. So here's what I'm gonna do. Kill the fan. So I bought this silicone lubricant oil. It's food grade. I guess you're supposed to use it to lube up culinary stuff. Actually pretty good. There's another one. The other guy on YouTube used one super lube or something like that, but it was not prime and it was like 16 bucks. This one was $6 or $7. So lubricating valves, O-ring, seals. It's probably pretty good stuff. Never heard of it. I mean, I have silicone grease, silicone gel, or whatever for electrical connections, but I've never seen silicone oil. It comes with a variety of, actually it does come with little needle points and stuff like that. Grabbed a couple of needle pads from my lady friend works at my fiance works at the hospital, so I had to grab a couple of different tips. So we have that marked. Let's see, how does this come apart? Oh, I was wondering why my mileage was reset. It's because I put it down on the reset bar. Oops. Okay, so how does this come apart? I think it's just you push it through. Right, to reveal the motors underneath. face definitely doesn't come off. I do not want to mess this up. So this all stays intact. How does this separate? Thought those were the pins you would push, but they're not. And these kind of go onto the board with the bulb, so there's no way. Does this whole piece come off? All right, let me do some research. Okay, I followed up on the video. On the other YouTube video. The reason I end up duplicating some of these is you never know. Maybe different angles, different perspective. Because I know when I'm researching stuff, I end up looking for, you know, as many videos as I can possibly find so that I can tackle it the best way possible. So pretty much just go around the board. Go around the board, lifting. There it is. We got it. Got that, and then there's a ribbon. Have to disconnect. Bam. All right. So, yeah. Strangely enough, the one that has the most rust and stuff on it, I don't know if you can see that, is the fuel one. So the reason why you have to mark the fuel is because all the other ones get their readings provided. I don't know exactly why you have to mark the fuel, but for some reason, see how these fight you? These have the oil, they're fine. These spin. So I'm gonna do the oil and the fuel. Let's see what happens. So I guess I'll set this down kind of on here so that I have, and then these are there are 2T something or other. I guess we're about to find out. Take those off, take the motors off, take the needles off the front, obviously. Here's the back of the board with your bulbs. Huh, so a lot of them are, actually it looks like, oh yeah, there are a lot of bulbs up here. I'm gonna take a picture of this to see if any of them are out when it's back in. This is easy enough. Actually, I'll just record it. So there are three bigger, one big, one big. So 8 bulbs plus the little tiny, you know, if you were doing an LED upgrade or something like that. Personally, I just like how reliable, I mean, we're talking 26 years later and these bulbs are still good to go, right? So just leave it at that. I mean, they don't seem blown to me. I don't recall there being dark spots on the thing, but at least now I'll know if there's a dark spot, which bulb I need. This is so easy to get out. It wouldn't bother me to do this twice. What do you think? White face gauges with flames? Nah. Even though that would be period correct for modifying it kind of cheesily. So I saw another YouTube where the guy used a fork, a plastic fork, to kind of get under it. I'm gonna lift it off at 0. Just oh, there it went. All right, so let's lift it off more or less at 0. I don't think that matters. That's why I didn't mark it, but I'm still. And then this one, I'm gonna do the same. It's actually a perfect tool. You put it on and then kind of shimmy it off. And there it is. So I'm gonna put the fuel one by the flowers. A little spring. Fuel one by the flowers because FF. And then the oil one will be right here. So that's done. Now I can, I'm gonna put this little push thing here so that it's not sitting on anything. Now let me go and figure out what T. It's very small. I'm gonna say T15 probably. I'll double check. Okay, it was smaller than a T10. So what do we have here? T8? Nope. T9? Too loose. Actually, you know what? What was that? T7, definitely too loose. T8 felt kind of loose. No, actually no, that's it. Excuse me. That is a T8. So, there we go. And then there's a certain orientation. There's only one way that I can go in, so you don't have to really pay too much attention to that. Okay. So it's pretty much just a coil. Okay, here's what I'm not understanding though. Where the heck would you add oil to this? Right, that's that little needle. Does this entire thing pull out of here? Where would you add oil to this? Unless it's this little cap comes off. But if that was the case, why wouldn't you be able to just do it on the board? Why would you even have to pull it off of the board? I also read that you can replace these, possibly. F3G 2256. So F3, F is fuel. Okay, so it's not super obvious where the heck you would add oil to this. So I might have to rewatch that video again. Be right back. Okay, so when I first watched the video, I thought you use a needle into the actual motor, but it's actually over the little pin without a needle. So it kind of sits over it, and then you pull the plunger to pull the air out, and then press it to kind of shove oil down into there. I guess we'll see if that works. Well, I couldn't really tell if I was doing it right, but it definitely fixed it. There's the same resistance that I have on the other gauges, and it doesn't fly around anymore. Cool. And here's how you can tell when you get the air out. You seat it on there and you kind of pull it. See that first little bubble that pops up? That's air that was trapped in there. So you pull up, pull the bubble out. Right to the top, and then it resists a lot on the way back, but it's obviously shoving it through a tiny little hole. So kind of did that. I lifted a little, which is not good because that gets a little bit of the oil on the coil. I'm gonna assume that the food safe oil doesn't really bother it, but so I'll try again. And now there are no bubbles. So pull this off, throw the needle on, see how it feels. And see, it used to just flip around. Now it's offering the resistance it needs. Good to go. Like it was mentioned in a different video, these motors only go in one way. See, I happened to pay attention to which side the writing was on this one, but when you try to stick it in, it kind of sits lopsided and weird. When you drop it in the other way, it sits nice and flush. Kind of falls into a groove. So now, look, these had good resistance to begin with, but these do the same. Should be good. And there she is, put back together. A little bit of a glare. I wiped down the lens. It's got some scratches. I could polish that out, but you won't see that. Okay, better. Let's go ahead and put that baby back in the truck. Okay, so I screwed up. I just realized, what was the point of marking everything if when I have the step motor off to test if there's resistance, if I'm good to go, I slapped the needle back on and I spun it. Because then the motor's not going to be starting back at the same starting point. So I'm not sure how to end up back at 0. Actually, let me see something. When I turn it off, those two needles basically stay. Right? Obviously these two are fine. This one flipped over, so I think if I just knock it back to 0, that's fine. But these two, how would I know what's legit? I'm gonna have to pull the plastic off. The only thing I can say that's good is that with the truck on before, I know where the needle for the fuel should have been. The one for oil pressure, I have to ballpark, but I want to say it rode at about 40, and then when you'd rev it, watch, right? Boom, that's good. Fuel doesn't move because it's where it's supposed to be. That I can kind of ballpark where it should be, which was at just under a hair under 3/4 of a tank. And realistically, I can also fill the tank and set it back to full. So that one's easy to do. The fuel one, I mean, the oil pressure is going to be a little tougher, but see, watch the fuel, watch the oil pressure. So I think I started around 40 and it went to 60, but I don't know how to set that back to where it's supposed to be. Oh, if you're gonna be dumb, you better be tough. So when you pull this stuff off, do not spin those damn needles when they're off of the board. Okay, I may be saved. I knocked that back over. I obviously took the plastic off. Fuel was at just under 3/4, which is fine. It's not jumping around anymore, which is awesome. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fill that so that you know what full is. Full, boom, you full. I'm gonna move it all the way to full. So I'll manually move that to full. Okay, so my save on the oil is, watch this. You turn it on, 40 sounds pretty good. It's probably right. Almost 60. Good fuel pressure. Turn it off. It drops to 0. Watch. Oh, it had dropped to 0. Oh, when you put the key back in but don't turn it on, see how the needle moved back to 0? So now I'm a little under 0, so I'm gonna lift it off. Put it right at 0 on the money. Push it all the way in, off. It does whatever it's gonna do. It might be a little high now, see? It's reading close to 60 at idle. It'll taper back off to 50, that's too much. It's not. So now when I turn it off, and then I turn it back to accessory, see, I'm above 0. So I'm gonna bring that, pull that off. And I'm gonna set it to what I think is hopefully 0, more or less. Off, on. Yeah. That's actually, if you look at it head on, that's right on the money at 0. So crank car on. We're at around 50. And then it vacuum picks up, drops down to just above 40. I'm gonna call that good. So I think the most important part about that, obviously, is to know that you don't have 0 oil pressure. Watching whether it says 40 or 45 isn't gonna make definitely nice to have smoother movement, but I don't know if it's a sending unit or what. Look at the gas gauge. jumps all over the place. Take off. If you come to a stop, then just relax. Yeah, it goes wherever it wants. Now it's at a line under 3/4, almost 3/4. I don't get it. Now the fork and the gauge needle, plastic fork, is perfect for getting that off. That was a good suggestion. So using my torque app, I can tell this is supposed to be, it always reads like 150, but it's really 190. So I physically moved that needle up to what it should be. Unless the temperature sensor, maybe that's an indication that the thermostat is staying open and not reaching temp. I haven't had any overheating issues, but on this block, you already know. You probably won't know it. I filled up the fuel and I put it exactly at full, so that should be perfect. It seems like it still moves around, but I'm imagining as fuel sloshes around the sending unit, maybe it constantly does move up and down. So that's probably accurate. But when you're stopped, that tells you exactly where you're at. So, and we're leaning right now, so a little over full. I set that to full. The fuel pressure sits down at 20-25. Boom. When you rev it, when you get on it, it goes almost to 60. Seems about right. So, and then obviously voltage is good. That's perfect. So we're good. We good for now. All right. That's it. And put the plastic back together and call it a day.